He whose name sleeps in my heart, and there it is. It's apart my eyes' windows to the beauty of your name. 7 letters that I've loved formed to become my beloved.
Assalamu alaikum. It's Monday morning, but we have a jam-packed show for you today, and this is the first edition of our Muharram and Safar series.
Yes, indeed, and we have started the month of Muharram, and this is the time to go to Majlis and possibly reap the barakah by holding your own Majlis.
Yes, Sister Zara, that's very, very true. There are so many rewards and blessings in giving a Majlis for the lovers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. All the forms of azadari have a huge benefit. We hope, inshallah, that you benefit from the commemorations of this important time.
Absolutely, and inshallah we'll take advantage of the days ahead, and we have the opportunity to wipe away our sins with the love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
Indeed. So our Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family loved his grandson Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It was the Holy Prophet who said, "Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein." So subhanallah, it's clear that Imam Hussein sacrificed himself for Islam, the same message as our Holy Prophet.
Absolutely, and yes, in the hadith of Thaqalain, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family has said the two weighty things that he will leave behind are the Quran and Hotbird, and with both of these vital things which go hand in hand, we will be steadfast in our faith and belief, inshallah.
Brilliant, subhanallah. Let us bring on the barakah this morning and see what we have coming up shortly. We have Brother Mustafa Ali blessing our studio with a beautiful recitation of the Holy Quran from Surah Al-An'am.
We also have Brother Ibrahim Ansari on the couch with our daily du'as, which is a staple during these holy months. Today we'll be looking at a du'a for welcoming the month of Muharram.
We're also bringing you live footage from the holy shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Looking forward to that, we will be seeing the flag change on the dome of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So we hope inshallah you can reap the benefits of ziyarah from the comfort of your own home. And right after that, we also have a latum and recitations, and today we have a great poet that is Nouri Sardar. Really can't wait for that.
Absolutely, looking forward to that too. And we also have Sister Masuma Jaffer answering your personal questions with Dear Masuma. Today we are looking at sacrifice and compromise.
Yes, we also have the cutest guest, our little Husseini, is educating us on the rituals during Muharram.
And finally we also have Sayyid Musa Shah on the couch with your fit questions and queries.
And that will wrap up all of today's proceedings. But right now, we are giving you an opportunity to deliver personal ziyarah to any member of your deceased family or friends. So with more details from our colleague in Karbala, Brother Ali.
Sunrise and sunset, your love I'd share. On one side, a beloved, whilst I want to be loved by one.
We are born with the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learn to crawl, to walk, to read, and to write. We live our lives. We donate to humanity, we donate to society, and we donate to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Before you know it, we die. We leave this life and we move on to the next journey. Morning Barakah is offering you the chance to help your loved ones on their journey. We are taking down names of your loved ones who are no longer with you to dedicate a recitation of the holy ziyarat of Imam Hussein to them. Our reciters will recite a ziyarat Ashura on your loved one's behalf, right here from the holy land of Karbala and in front of the holy shrine of Abi Abdullah Hussein, Abu Abdullah. We understand the pain of losing a loved one and wanting to do the best for their akhirah. That is why Morning Barakah is giving you the opportunity to give comfort to those who have moved on. All we want you to do is to send in the names of your loved ones, family members, neighbors, friends, associates, and we will recite and donate to their akhirah only on Morning Barakah here on IMAM HUSSEIN TV 3.
If you would like to participate in this initiative, please send the name of the marhum you would like the ziyarat read for to either Morning Barakah at imamhussein.tv or comment your marhumeen's names on our Instagram page at IMAM HUSSEIN 3 TV, and we will make sure this gift reaches them.
Your beauty and found it within me.
Yes, welcome back. And to kick off today's program and to really introduce the series of Morning Baraka Muharram and Arba'een special, we are joined, and we're glad to be joined as ever by Mustafa Al-Ali, who's going to be enlightening us with his beautiful voice and very particular voice and expertise when it comes to the Quran and the recitation of the Holy Quran. Mustafa, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Personally, it gives me great pleasure to hear you live, actually, because I've seen you in many competitions and I've seen you in many programs, and I'm always sitting there very tentatively hearing your voice, because you have a very special talent when it comes to the recitation of the Quran. So very delighted to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So I guess today we're going to be kicking off the whole series with Surah Al-An'am, chapter 6, verse 95. So inshallah, we wish you all the best.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله فالق الحب والنوى يخرج الحي من الميت ومخرج الميت من الحي ذلكم الله فأنى تؤفكون. إن الله فالق الحب والنوى يخرج الحي من الميت ومخرج الميت من الحي ذلكم الله فأنى تؤفكون. فالق الإصباح وجعل الليل سكنا فالق الإصباح وجعل الليل سكنا والشمس والقمر حسبانا ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. وهو الذي جعل لكم النجوم لتهتدوا بها في ظلمات البر والبحر قد فصلنا الآيات لقوم يعلمون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Fantastic performance from Mustafa Ali. Once again, we really thank him for his time.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes I go into a trance when it comes to his recitations because he's so particular when it comes to what we call the maqamat, and that's the specific tones of the recitation of the Quran. Mustafa, thank you so much for your time. This part of the show is really taking a deep dive into the supplications and the du'as that are associated with the school of the Ahlul Bayt, specifically when it comes to Muharram and Safar, the occasion of Ashura, the occasion of Arba'in. So what we've done throughout this series is to really take a deep dive into some of the supplications or the du'as that are associated with Ashura and Arba'in, discussing a bit about the story behind them, discussing the characters behind them, and also understanding, why are certain du'as and supplications chosen during this month. To discuss that from now until the end of the series, we have Ibrahim Al-Ansari. Ibrahim, salaam alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
It's a great pleasure to have you on the show with us.
It's my pleasure, honestly. So
thank you so much for joining us. So to go into the dua, you've chosen, so we're beginning Muharram, it's the beginning of our new year. And it's interesting you selected a particular dua that talks about the generics of welcoming a new year into, so obviously we have done Muharram where we're commemorating, but also it's the beginning of a year. And we're asking Allah to give us protection from shaitan. Definitely. And it's a beautiful dua. So is there a particular reason there why you selected this one?
So of course when we open our dua book, so usually I think this is a very beautiful thing about our school of thought, which is that for everything that we do, we find the dua, we find the supplication. Literally the smallest of things that we do in our daily lives, entering your house, there's a dua. Leaving your house, there's a dua. Going on a journey, there's a dua. Everything that we can do, there's a dua. And a very beautiful thing is that we've got dua books in which the imams, in which someone has collected the du'as that were given to us by the imams. This specific dua, if we actually open Mafatih al-Jinan and we look at, for example, the amal of the month of Muharram, we find that this is recommended to be recited at the very start of the month.
Sure.
Who recommended it specifically? Was it one of the prophets or the imams?
This is by one of the imams.
Oh, one of the imams, okay.
So would you like to commence your reciting?
Sure, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم أنت الإله القديم وهذه سنة جديدة فأسألك فيها العصمة من الشيطان والقوة على هذه النفس الأمارة بالسوء والاشتغال بما يقربني إليك يا كريم يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا عماد من لا عماد له يا ذخيرة من لا ذخيرة له يا حرز من لا حرز له يا غياث من لا غياث له يا سند من لا سند له يا كنز من لا كنز له يا حسن البلاء يا عظيم الرجاء يا عز الضعفاء يا منقذ الغرقى يا منجي الهلكى يا منعم يا مجمل يا مفضل يا محسن أنت الذي سجد لك سواد الليل ونور النهار وضوء القمر وشعاع الشمس ودوي الماء وحفيف الشجر يا الله لا شريك لك اللهم اجعلنا خيرا مما يظنون واغفر لنا ما لا يعملون ولا تؤاخذنا بما يقولون حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم آمنا به كل من عند ربنا وما يذكر إلا أولو الألباب ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أحسنت
Beautiful.
Haj
Thank you so
Ibrahim.
much.
It's really nice. What's the name of this this extract? Which dua was it from?
This is specifically the dua of the month of the beginning of the month of Muharram, so the beginning of the year.
So it's not an taken from another dua.
No,
I think this is the actual full
dua.
Beautiful.
So the reason I brought this fully, and I know we've got a very short time,
yeah,
but I thought it was a very short dua, and if we look at it throughout it all, I think it's very hard to choose a specific extract from it.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. It talks about how, like he said, we ask for protection. It talks about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his attributes, that's a very important one as well. It goes through a lot of his attributes, and it goes through a lot of his powers, and how he's actually with us. Ya ghiyatha man la ghiyatha lahu, and how he supports us, and how he's there for those who have no one there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually, as Zara was mentioning, it's very interesting because a lot of people in a lot of different cultures and religions, the beginning of their year is often associated with celebrations and parties or whatever it may be. But the beginning, but what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to really show to us, that Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the importance of Muharram, we want to actually seek nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before we enter the new month. And what better way, I guess, in terms of, it's actually very interesting because a lot of people's emotions are heightened when it comes to Muharram. Their nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Imam Hussein alayhi salam is heightened during Ashura, right? So it's the coincidence or the miracle of it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to tell you in this dua that seek nearness to Allah through the month of Muharram, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which is the pinnacle of emotions that people have.
I think it's very interesting how, in fact, that Muharram was, in fact, the killing of Imam Hussein and his martyrdom to be done at the start of the year. And like you mentioned very beautifully, it's our spirituality, it automatically goes up during Muharram. And then to have that as, I think it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us a boost for the next year.
Definitely.
He is telling us, you know what, instead of starting here, I'm going to make you start right here. And you go, you do the run. Literally, it's like giving someone a start in which they are so ready for the next year in closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
But even when you look at the interpretation, I don't know if you want to quickly go through sort of what you've read for the sake of people who don't understand Arabic. But it's actually talking about one of the things, exactly what you both are saying, that Allah calls not our hearts to stray, and I'm going right to the end, but it's quite, it's relevant to what you've just said, that cause not our hearts astray after thou hast guided us and bestow upon us mercy from thy presence. And you think the guidance comes certainly from the school of Ahl Bayt through Ahl Bayt, doesn't it, to reach to Allah. So we are in the beginning of the year going through the sort of the teachings of Ahl Bayt, through their actions, through their sacrifice, and we are remembering Allah at the same time. So if you want to just quickly go through, if you'd like to.
Yeah, so of course you start off by calling out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the eternal God, and then you tell him, this is the beginning of another year, and I request you in this hour to keep shaitan away from me and to give me control over myself. And this nafs is very specific. So the nafs that we're talking about is not just what I do, no, it's the inside of you, and that waswas that you get as well, that is inside in your nafs. So that is inclined to sin and deviation, so that it brings me near to you. We're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring us closer to him in this upcoming year. O compassionate, O the owner of majesty and kindness, O supporter of him who has no supporter, O provider of him who has no provision, O he who watches over him, O who has no protection, O he who comes to help, O he who comes to help with O he who comes to help him who has no hope of help. O reliance for him who has no one to lean upon. O treasure of him who has nothing in the purse. O he who knows well how to test and trial. O the ultimate hope, and this is important, ultimate hope. A lot of us throughout the year, we're like, do you know what? I feel down. Something specific happens throughout the year, but if we're remembering at the start of every year that the ultimate hope is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing can bring us down.
And I you know, just going back over this passage, and I don't know if, Brother Ali, you have, you know, your sort of, but I just feel like that applies to every single creation. That even if we have support mechanisms, it doesn't matter who is in our life, at the end we are alone and we are all beggars and we are not self-sufficient. So this is a reminder. I mean, there are some people that are very lonely in this world, and of course Allah is the closest to them, but we are all in that position, aren't we?
Definitely. It's when we come, the thing is, the relationship between the created and the creator is very specific. There is no difference between myself and yourself. There's no difference between us and others. We see in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he mentions this very beautifully in the Quran as well, in Surah Al-Hujurat, I believe it is. It says, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَى وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. We have created you from male and female, and we have created you into nations and tribes for you to come to know one another. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The one closest to Allah. The one closest to Allah is the one who's most pious, the one who's most God conscious. And that is literally what differentiates one servant from the other. But other than that, we are all equal. No matter how much wealth we have, no matter what we are doing as a day-to-day job.
What race we are, I mean, saying
what race
different tribes we are.
And that's a very beautiful thing about Islam as well. So definitely, we are all in that same position. And the thing is, with this specific dua, one aim of it is to increase in our piety. Because piety is the only thing, literally the only thing that gets us close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Imams, and we're remembering Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam, what made them so great? Their piety. Their piety, with no doubt. Every single one of the Imams. And you see, even with the Prophets, what made their ranking different? Because we all know the Prophets are not all equal. There's different rankings. The only difference is piety.
Fascinating discussion. I wanted to actually find out, because I was reading this dua and I wanted to link it back to Imam Hussein because in terms of preparing for the month, a lot of people have different ways to do so. So some people would, for example, the reciters would prepare their poems in order to recite. The poets would write their poems. The different people within the programs, they'd start, for example, putting up the black or preparing the pulpits. The speakers will go through their notes. People would even start wearing preparing their black clothes for the month. Why is it important to rely on dua to prepare ourselves for the month?
I think the first thing we need to do is actually look at what dua is. So dua, a prayer. And through dua, literally the only reason dua was there, firstly dua is ibadah, as we all know. So number one, it's an act of ibadah, act of worship. Number two, it is direct conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, when I have a conversation with you, I automatically become closer to you. The more we speak, the closer we get. So it's very similar with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more we supplicate towards Him, the more we talk directly to Him, the closer we get. And I remember sitting with a sheikh not too long ago, and he mentioned something, it's relevant right now as well. We were talking about Imam Mahdi and our relationship with him. And actually this is what he said. He said, if every time we sit down after Salat al-Fajr and we talk directly to the Imam, we become closer to Imam Mahdi Ajala Ta'ala Farjahu Sharif. So literally there's always, whenever there is direct conversation, we become closer. So one way in which we can prepare ourselves to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by talking to Him directly.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, we could talk so much more about.
There is so much to cover. Inshallah, probably in the future mornings we have together. Inshallah, God gives us the
tawfiq. Is the time finished now?
Yes, we are at the end of the morning. There, like you said, there is so much to go through.
There is. I've actually got another 5 more questions just based on what you've said to ask you. But you know, we're here with you for the next couple of episodes, so definitely much more to look forward to, especially for our viewers as well.
Hope they've benefited certainly from the dua. It's a beautiful dua. We didn't actually get through the whole translation, but perhaps people would like to refer to. You said it was Mafatih al-Janan.
Mafatih al-Janan, or if they just type in on the internet the dua for the start of Muharram, will come up.
And it'll also be available on our website. But just quickly, what's the best time, do you think, the night before to recite this? After Fajr, when would be the best time?
This is, of course, after Fajr, you're entering the month.
Yes.
However, throughout that whole day of the first day,
Recite.
it is just, that's dua, that's the beauty of dua,
Absolutely.
just recite.
It really recenters you. And
it's a short one as well, it didn't take too long to recite as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so Ibrahim, really appreciate your time. On the next part of the show, we're going to be seeing some footage from an annual ceremony to open up the proceedings of Muharram and to really signify the start of the new year and start of the new month and the start of Ashura, and that's as ever and as we're all accustomed to from the holy land of Karbala on the dome of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and it's the ceremony of the changing of the flags.
نعم نزلت الراية الحمراء.
مثلك شهر بك ظل سجاد دل على انفسك.
جسدي حامل اللواء على المزرعة وهو
يا شهر عاشور هيجت الحزن. أرضيك جسم حسين وبلادك حسين خلى الجامعين.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and as you've seen on your screens, the first day of Muharram here in London, and we've shown you live scenes or scenes from Karbala as they change the flag, signifying the first day of Muharram. And it's, of course, the start of the mourning process, the commemoration for the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It's a time where once the flag changes, everyone within Karbala, outside Karbala, the whole world really begins that mindset of mourning for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And they've changed their ways, they've prepared for the 10 days ahead of them, and the first day is upon us. So that's what you've just seen on your screens, some amazing scenes there. And every single year, you know, we gear up towards Muharram, we anticipate the changing of the flag. And as you've seen there, it's an emotional, very highly charged piece of acts that happens every single year, which signifies, again, the first day of Muharram, the changing of the flag from the dome of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I'm joined at this moment in time, and this segment, this part of the program, is the verses of love aspect of Morning Barakah, where we take a bit of an insight or a deep dive into the reciters of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, looking into the different forms of recitations. Of course, because when it comes to Muharram, one of the main aspects is the emotional attachment to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And the main way of emotionally attaching yourself to the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is through the tears and through the commemorations and through the recitations and poetry. And as such, every single episode throughout the series, we will have a reciter or a poet in which we'll take a deep dive into their lives and shed light on what the challenges they face when it comes to writing poetry or reciting for the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So I am absolutely honored to be joined by my dear friend Nouri Sardar, who has taken his time to be with us. Thank you so much for your time, Nouri. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
It's always a pleasure to speak to you. Throughout our years, we've had times where every now and then we get to take some time out of our busy schedules to really have a bit of a heart-to-heart in terms of the latest when it comes to poetry or recitations. And of course, your field is quite different to my field, but they're more or less interlinked in the sense that the poetry that you write, the reciters from my perspective will take and recite on the pulpit. So it's good to have some time to really take away from the busy schedules. And
sometimes in front of the camera as well.
Yeah, sometimes in front of the camera, outside the camera, so it's always great. So look, really appreciate your time. I guess going straight into the topic, for when it comes to Muharram, of course, you gearing towards Muharram and the days of Muharram, you begin in your mind to start writing poetry. And what I wanted to focus on today, and I know from last year that you released a track or a video named Revival. And it's a very interesting name we'll allude to in a second. But Revival is quite an interesting listen from my perspective, because it's quite different to what you've usually done. In the sense, the whole discussion about what's traditional and non-traditional and modern, and everyone's now changing their perception of what's traditional and what's modern and what should we do in order to spread the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So from your perspective, I mean, what is it about Revival? What's the reason?
So I think, as you know, every piece of art or every track or whatever you do as a creative art, every time you put something forward, it reflects who you are at that moment in your life, which I'm sure you'll agree with as well. So if you look at, for example, the first two albums that we did together, they were very much reflective of who I was at that time. And in terms of also where I was in the realm of English poetry, of course, I was just starting to I'd been writing for a few years, but I was just starting to kind of get up and recite. You were just starting to kind of like recite as well. And it was really the first album of its kind to put forward both English poetry and recitation together. Those are the first two albums. And I think at that time, English poetry and my English poetry was very primitive in that all it really was an adaptation of the Arabic style of writing lamentations, or the Urdu style of writing lamentations, and putting it together. After that, what followed after that is I wanted to experiment by working with reciters of different styles. Obviously, those two albums were very Iraqi in their style. So I wanted to work with people who recite in a Pakistani tone, Iranian tone, Iraqi tone as well, and multiple reciters just to show that, the poetry can be picked up by anyone, but each time a different reciter of a different culture recites it, it gives a completely different life to it, which shows, of course, how amazing reciting is as well. That was like a trilogy of albums in itself. And that, obviously, as well, is a testament to the plethora of reciters that we have and different styles that we have, and the effort that reciters put in as well into the albums. Once I'd done all that, you know, at 6-7 years, and this is getting quite personal now, but I was in a place where, alhamdulillah, I felt like I've achieved so much and had somewhat of an impact on the Shia sphere. But I was then asking myself, where am I, what relevance do I have in the world outside that sphere? You know, inside the sphere, you know, you're Ali Fadl, you're Nuri Sadar, you know, you're doing something for the community, alhamdulillah, which is a great honor. But the minute you step outside that, the minute you go to, you know, anonymous, and he says, who are you? I say, oh, I'm Nuri Sadar, I write poetry about the Ahl Bayt. It doesn't mean anything to them, right? He's asking, how are you impacting the world? What are you doing to help me? So I thought that, and it was a very scary place for me to be in, because I had never really dabbled in spoken word poetry. I think that I'm still very horrible at it as well. But at the same time, like, I felt like I had to not exchange what I had for spoken word poetry, but expand my horizons and try and do things that had an impact on the outside world. So
Did you feel like you had to learn something totally new?
Yeah, it was very scary. But I thought, you know, unless I try it, I'm going to be stuck in the same circle.
Yeah, just doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing for the rest of my life, and you need to progress. I mean, veering off topic, I know a lot of people in the reciters world, they revere people like Basim, right? As you know. But the one thing we always forget about Basim is the reason he is Basim is because he kept challenging the status quo, because he kept doing something new.
He kept innovating.
Everyone keeps trying to be Basim, but people are forgetting that Basim is continually trying to be someone else, right? So in that sense, what I did was, then I went out, I did a spoken word piece about the Muslim ban by Trump, about Grenfell Tower. I did one, and really I just wanted to tackle issues that weren't necessarily about the Ahl Bayt, but were important to me, things that I believed in, things that I cared about, things that I was passionate about, and essentially expand my horizons. So when Muharram came, So
how long, just before you get to Muharram, so how long had this process of contemplation been going on? Grenfell Tower, for example, the ban, the Muslim ban. How long is that going on from the traditional to the
in terms of the creative aspect, I would say it's always been going on. You know, you're always asking yourself.
No, as in, for example, you suddenly one day decided, I want to start a poetry or start a poem on, for example, the Muslim ban. Well, actually, what was your first poem which was out of the traditional Shia?
It was that.
Muslim ban one,
It was that, yeah.
Okay, and then after that came what, Grenfell?
The Grenfell one, yeah.
Okay, so there was a process of like, there's a bit of a change there.
Yeah.
So you didn't do anything traditional. Was it a conscious choice, or was it because out of season? Because you know within the Shia world we have seasons, right? Muharram, Ghadir, Arba'in, Ramadan. So was it because it's out of season, let me try to do something different? Or?
So being frank, as a creative, and I'm sure you'll share this as well, we have very, very fragile, we have very bad self-esteem, right? Yeah. So the minute we feel like people don't care about art anymore, we feel like, you know, what's the point of doing it? Kind of, you know, not completely, but like, let's be honest, you know, there's like an inner anxiety to our art. You know, it's like when you don't get that many likes on Facebook. I know it sounds really, you know, materialistic.
You're absolutely right. Actually,
when you don't get an invite to a certain place, you're like, okay,
what's going on?
Do I not matter anymore? You know, and that is ultimately the ego, which is a very bad thing. But at the same time, it's a creative anxiety that you have as well. You know, you're like, okay, I have a talent and I want to express it, but people aren't. I wouldn't say they wouldn't care about it, but they're not appreciating it. It's not affecting them anymore. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, what's the point of even doing it then? You know what I mean?
People become numb to it, maybe.
People become numb to it, and it's like, you know, people are saying, oh, that's great. But no one's saying, wow, that changed my life. And as someone who, as a creative who exerts your creative talent onto someone else, that's what you want, because it's something that's changing your life, so you want it to change their life as well. So in that sense, I was in that kind of place of uncertainty, and I really wanted to just do something that I enjoyed again, you know, because it comes to a point where you keep doing the same thing again and again. You're doing it for the sake of it and not because you enjoy it. Of course, it's service to Ahl Bayt, but that's a very broad term, you know. In the practical sense of it, you're not doing something that you enjoy. Sometimes you're just doing it because you're used to it, right? So when the Muslim ban thing happened, I just felt like I wanted to. I don't know where it came from. I just felt like I had to write something, you know.
And that was your form of
protest.
Service, protest.
It was my form of
yeah.
protest, and this is also comes back to revival. Is it looks at what's the point of remembering Imam Hussein? What's the point of lamenting Imam Hussein? The point is that you stand up when you see things like this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the way I know how to stand up is through poetry. So that I remember, I wrote it in a day, I recorded it in a day, and I released it straight away. And I was so scared as to what the reaction would be because I had no idea what people would think.
Muslim ban or revival?
Muslim ban.
Okay.
Revival as well. I'll get that in a bit. Muslim ban, but I was like, people are going to say it's rubbish. No one's going to care. People are going to say, what the hell are you doing? But alhamdulillah, even though I think it was a horrible, horrible poem, it just like the poetry about the Ahlul Bayt that I'd done in the past, it touched people, which is why I think they appreciated it.
Yeah.
With,
just moving. I totally appreciate what you're saying. Just moving on, I guess from the process was that Muslim ban, Grenfell Tower, which is another amazing piece as well, and very relevant to today's society.
Yeah. Because
a lot of people say, "Oh, Imam Hussein history." Well, what's that got to do with now? But this is now. Like this is standing up for for justice and oppression, right? So it came to Muharram, and you thought, okay, I've got the traditional, and I've now got. I've dipped my toes in this new modern way of writing and thinking and this creative aspect that I have, right? So you brought the two together. How did it work with the revival?
So when Muharram came, I was in a very bad, dare I say, place where I didn't even want to do an album because I just felt like I wouldn't be giving it justice because it wasn't really in my interest at the time. But at the same time, of course, as someone, when Muharram comes, as you know, you always got this feeling of I want to do something for Imam Hussein kind of thing. So I thought I'd put a track together, a spoken word track, and just really look at the core value of Imam Hussein, because I felt like a lot of reciters and poets do a fantastic job when it comes to Muharram, commemorating Imam Hussein. And we have majalis and everything, but I was just in this state of mind of what relevance does it have to the wider world? Are we in a danger of keeping our commemoration inside the mosque and doesn't affect the wider world? This is one thing I continuously say all the time, and one thing I say to myself as well is that in Muharram, we as the Shia, especially our speakers as well, have the opportunity to tell the wider world what the solutions to their problems are, because we have all the answers, right? But unfortunately, I feel like we use that to look inwardly. Speak about community issues, speak about historical issues, which are all great, but when you're not thinking about the wider world, you don't have relevance to the wider world, and that's the whole point. If you're keeping the message of Imam Hussein to yourself, then really you're doing it injustice. Right. So my intention was to really tackle that, and just from a very basic level, remind people: listen, if you're gonna commemorate Imam Hussein, it's important that you look within yourself and ask yourself, have you actually picked up on the lessons to Imam Hussein? Because I feel like we also facing a very, I would call it dangerous mentality in the communities that we have, whereas the Majlis of Imam Hussein is the be-all and end-all. Whereas the way I see it is it should be the springboard to greatness. You go to the Majlis of Imam Hussein, you learn to be better, and then you go out into wider society and you better society. And that's where I think it should be. And that's what I was trying to tackle in that poem.
Yeah, brilliant. And I guess there's so much more to discuss when it comes to revival. I've taken a very keen interest because I love the way that, as you mentioned, we're pretty much irrelevant to the outside world when we speak about only our minor community issues, like whatever it is that goes on in the community. And we need to open up. And you're right, like essentially the message of Imam Hussein is, we keep on saying it. We say it year in,
we say it every year. Yeah.
It's a universal message. The whole of the world should be able to learn from it. But what are we doing for the whole of the world to actually get that message? You
take this message to the oppressed black communities in the US. You take this message to the raw. You take a message to anyone. They would cling to it and they would learn it. But the problem is we're too concerned with making the perfect majlis and not thinking beyond that. Exactly. Which is the problem,
Exactly. And I guess we'll take a bit of an insight into that. We'll show you a couple of minutes of the revival track. And for now, thank you so much for your time, Noor. I really, really appreciate it. We'll definitely going to see you more during the series of Morning Barakah. But after the segment, we're going to be joined by my co-host, Zara Kazmi, as well as Masuma Jafar, who are going to be speaking about sacrifice under the program of Dear Masuma. So, Zara, over to you.
And now we have Sister Masuma joining us to talk about sacrifice and compromise. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Masuma.
Alaikum salam.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Good. So we have a question from a viewer, anonymous in the UK. So if I read it out, and then perhaps we can go into responding to the question. So it says, Dear Masuma, I barely feel a connection religiously. I feel it maybe because I feel unlucky in life, or that Allah may be punishing me. During the first few days of Muharram, I tend to feel my most spiritual. However, this usually dies down completely after the day of Ashura. Is there anything you could suggest I do so that I get the most spiritually out of the first 10 days?
Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I think before I actually answer the question that she's asked, I'd like to pick up on the point that she says, I feel unlucky in life. There's no such thing as luck. I truly believe that there's no such thing as coincidence. Allah is totally in control. He decides everything, and He does only that is good for us. So this concept of, you know, I'm lucky or I'm unlucky, I think, you know, that has to be taken out of the mindset. And I think if she realizes that, or he realizes that Allah is totally in control, then the next point where they say Allah may be punishing me, again, you look at it from a totally different perspective, because when Allah is in control, Allah only does what is good for you. So
do you think that's a reflection of their own internal feeling, that I feel unlucky and Allah is punishing me? So they're almost like damning themselves, aren't they? And feeling that sadness. So then they portray it to Allah.
And then what happens is, because you're expecting things to go wrong, then things do go wrong, because that's what then you sort of play out.
Is that do you think that's a level of hopelessness in that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. And so I think it's important for them to realize that why does Allah do what He does? So, you know, it's all about growth. And I think if we start looking at things from a growth perspective, then we see the goodness in it, even when it seems really awful, or, you know, it feels like it's really difficult. Because you see the growth in it, it makes it much easier to cope with. And, you know, even when something is done to us, because we know Allah is there and Allah is in control, then we feel like we can cope with this, because Allah gives us the tools to cope with it. So I think that's really, really important.
Definitely, it's a really good point, thank you.
And then they talk about the fact that they feel very connected during the first 10 days, and that sort of dies down after Ashura. And what can they do more? There are certain times in the year which are more blessed, you know, it has more barakah in it, and obviously during those times it is much easier to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because during those times we are forgiven our sins, you know, there is more barakah coming down, we ourselves, I think, come out of our normal routine, which again helps us to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think it's important to think of a few things here. For example, in the 10 days, what is it that he or she is doing which is helping her connect to Allah? During those 10 days, actually reflect on where they are, where they want to be, what's stopping them from being where they want to be, what can they change in their lives, ask for forgiveness.
So, just to elaborate on that point, would you say that these holy months, so Shahr Ramadan, Hajj, for Shias, obviously Ashura, Muharram, do you think these are ways, that points that are intercepted, almost like created to give us that connection? It's a blessing for us to be able to have that moment where, like you're saying, you can step out of your normal routine and Allah is calling you to Him, through the Ahlul Bayt.
No, for sure, because you know, if you think of a ship, when it's in water, it moves in the water. But for it to be fixed, it has to come out of the water. So it's the same sort of principle for us. It's like we need the world and we need to sort of move in the world. But sometimes we just need to be taken out of our daily routine, just so we can be fixed. And, you know, because God knew that we wouldn't concentrate on our soul and we would concentrate on our physical body, because we're in the physical world. He gives us these moments, these opportunities, in order to sort of connect to our soul, connect back to Him, connect to the Ahlul Bayt, in order to sort of realize where we're actually going. It's not about this world. We get so caught up in this world that we forget that this isn't the end.
Almost like realigning your compass to say where the direction is.
Exactly like that. So, you know, it's really important for, I think, the sad thing is, I think nowadays with the internet, which is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
But it can also be quite damning in, like, a lot of people will listen to lectures online. Again, you don't get the whole atmosphere, you don't get the concept of the ummah, you don't actually walk into a, you know, into a sort of mosque situation where you're with others, you're grieving with others, and, you know, all of that is important as well.
And they say where there's, even Hadith Qasar, where they say that, you know, there's a gathering of people and remembering Ahl Bayt, that Allah sends His angels there. So in these areas, like you're saying, the masjid is a classic place where there will be angels, so perhaps to, you know, alleviate our sins, aren't they?
Exactly,
so.
And also, you know, you have hadith where Bibi Fatima alayhi salam says that wherever, you know, the Masayib of Imam Hussein is recited, she will be present there.
Yeah.
So even if you don't get anything from the lecture, you know, there is a chance that your soul will connect to the soul of Lady Fatima. Why would you give up on that?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we're so focused on the academic aspect of it, this, you know, that we need to get something from the lecture, so we will look all over and try to find the best lecturer. But sometimes it's just about being there and coming out of the normal routine of our life. And it's like when you're at mosque, it's different to when you're at home. You know, when you're at home, you probably be sitting on your bed, relaxing, maybe sort of half concentrating, half not. There's a huge difference between actually physically going to the mosque.
The effort, isn't it? And that effort will be rewarded. But I think it's interesting, this question, and like we were saying, they feel hopeless, but then you think, well, they've managed to get a spiritual connection, which shows that Allah's door is not closed, and that you know, there's people that actually even in Ashura can't make that connection, and you think, well, you know, how, if that was the case, how much you'd possibly feel like that oh, maybe Allah is punishing. But the fact they've been able to do it for 10 days and then perhaps go, like you said, what is happening, that after the 10 days they're losing that connection. And I wanted to ask you really, like, so this is the beginning of Muharram, where we are now, what would you say would be where we ought to be? Where are we headed towards, sort of, by the end of this mourning period? Where should we look towards?
I truly believe that with every opportunity that's been given to us, there is accountability. So, you know, the opportunity of being born a Shia or coming into the Shia faith, the opportunity of going to the majalis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the opportunity of being with others who are mourning with you, I think those all have accountability. So if you are the same person at the beginning of the 10 days and you're exactly the same person at the end of that 10 days,
something's not quite...
Exactly. How are you going to answer to that opportunity? What are you going to say to God? What changed? So I think there is...
So is that a conscious change we should make?
I think I think what you need to do is, you know, when you go to the majalis, actually think to yourself, okay, again, there's nothing random in His universe. The fact that He has allowed me to come to this majalis means that there is something I need to learn from it, even if it's just one thing. So actually concentrate on one thing that you can take away, which then you can practically implement into your life, which can make you a better person, a better Muslim, closer to Allah, hopefully, you know, closer to reaching your potential. And actually consciously think of that, rather than just, you know, going there, listening to it and crying and then going back home and nothing changes. So I think there are, you know,
stages almost, aren't there?
Yeah. And that is the thing. It's like, you know, we have, you know, we feel that if we've cried, then we've done it.
Yeah.
But that is only the first stage of the grieving for Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
And that's almost like shedding your weight of sins to get those tears will inshallah be a cause of intercession. But then you've got to move on from that, haven't you?
For sure. It can't just stop at that because it doesn't make sense for it to. So, you know, and I think she needs to think about, okay, what is it that built that connection? Because like you're saying, the fact that she got that connection, there are so many people who don't feel that connection. So the fact that she's already feeling the connection is amazing.
Yeah.
So what is it that's giving her that connection? What is she doing that is helping her? You know, maybe she's actually taking more time out in ibadah. Maybe it's the connection with the Ahlul Bayt. Maybe, you know, whatever it is, he or she needs to think about what is it, and then continue with that. What usually happens is we start off at a level, and then during these blessed days or months, we sort of move upwards, and then once those days are over, we start coming down. But the idea is, yes, we will come down, but we shouldn't come down to the same level. We should at least be a little bit higher than where we started off with. So I think that, you know, you need to have a conscious sort of decision that I'm not going to be the exact same person that I was at the beginning. And the other beautiful thing I think about Muharram is, one, it's the beginning of the year. So you actually start off with your New Year's resolution. Okay, this is what I want to change this year, going forward. You know, this is what I didn't do last year. This is where I, you know, maybe wanted to improve on or whatever. And this is the beginning of the new year. This is the new start that God's given me. Let me change these things. And then you use the 10 days to do the istighfar, to, you know, to make sure that you've done proper tawbah, you've asked for forgiveness, you've made that connection. And then think about resolutions that you want to take forward and start implementing them. Usually we're told that it takes about 40 days for the habit to form. You've got exactly 40 days between the day of Ashura and Arba'een. So you've got 40 days in which you can actually, you know, make sure that you're doing these things that you've said you want to do. And inshallah, by Arba'een then, it will become a habit. It'll be part and parcel of who you are. And
so would you be able to give some possible sort of ideas to people, sort of suggestions? What kind of things, like small things, bigger things?
That's the thing, it has to be something small.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we get caught up on the moment and we think, oh, we're going to change this and we're going to change that, and we, you know, and it doesn't happen. So I think it's really important to realise that it has to be small steps. And you need to sort of think about, what is it that I need to change? So I think the first thing is to look at wajib and haram. Is there anything wajib that I'm not doing, which I should be doing? So, you know, am I doing all my 5 salahs? If I'm not, then I need to make sure I'm doing that. Am I wearing hijab? Am I, you know, keeping a beard? Am I doing whatever it is that's wajib on me? Am I doing that? If I'm not, then that's the first thing I need to sort out. If there is anything haram that I'm doing, again, I need to make sure that I stop that. Okay.
And again, I mean, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but in the terms of doing haram, that could be a barrier to you actually making that connection, couldn't it? So people shouldn't be disassociating that that's an element that's separate and different. It's actually part and parcel, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. It actually forms veils between you and Allah. It stops you from growing, it stops you from reaching your potential. So obviously, you know, what people don't realise, I think, or what they do is they think of it from the physical perspective and they think, oh, this doesn't make sense in the physical world.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do it. But the wajib and the haram was never about the physical body, because I know how to take care of my physical body. It's about my soul. So the damage it's causing to my soul, I have no idea. And as it's damaging my soul, then my soul cannot connect to Allah, cannot connect to the Ahlul Bayt.
And the classic example is when you know, seeing people who may perhaps eat haram, and that the heart gets affected and they become hard-hearted, and that's it's quite an unfortunate repercussion, isn't it, result of eating that. So it's so important. So as a final point, with less than a minute or so, what would you say is a lesson people need to learn from this month now that we're in the beginning, and what to take forward?
I think what's important is actually to look at the personalities in the event of Karbala and actually learn a little bit more about them so we can actually use them as role models.
Okay.
And when I say that I love Imam Hussein, that love has to then be shown through action, in that I emulate him. You know, it's not something that, oh, I love him, but I'm just going to do whatever I want. That love means nothing.
Inshallah, we can discuss these further in our future days. Thank you so much for today's input. It's been a beautiful beginning and introduction, and inshallah, we'll see you next time.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Up next are Mini Husseinis.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Raza Husseini Harimi. Today I'm here at Husseini Rasul Al-A'zam with my granddad Hajar Ali. I'm here today to get ready for tonight's majlis and for the coming nights of Muharram. So come on inside and I'll show you what I'll be doing.
Our home is Karbala, where the youth of the Shia, Hussein's flag is our treasure. We will fly it forever. Our home is Karbala, where the youth of the Shia, Hussein's flag is our treasure. We will fly it forever. We will never let it fall when we see it.
Today I'm here at the Chai Khana to make tea for the guests. Chai Khana in Arabic means tea room. So come inside as I'll be showing you how to make tea.
We will never let it fall.
Salam Amu Martaba. Good. My mommy. Yes.
Hussein, help us all. Our home is Karbala, where the youth of the Shia.
You want to tell them what you're doing?
Yes. I'm fixing the cups.
Yeah?
Do you want to put the teaspoons?
Yeah.
We're the youth of the Shia. Hussein's flag is our treasure. We will fly it for.
Can you put some sugar?
Yes.
Well done, Amor.
This flag hung on the walls. We saw it when we were small. We cried Hussein when we crawled in Muharram. Every hall has this flag hung on the walls. We saw.
How's your mother, Amirata?
Good.
It's good? How's work? She comes home late?
Yeah.
Yeah? Well done. Okay, I'll put the tea for you now. Put back. You want to tell everyone why you're not allowed to put tea?
Cause
Tell the camera.
it's dangerous.
And what will happen?
You'll burn your hand.
Karbala, we're the youth of the Shia. Hussein's flag is our treasure. We will fly it forever. Oh Hussein, just like Abbas, we'll plant the flag with our hands.
It's been a very hard day today. Thank you for watching. Let's head back to the studio.
Many thanks to Mini Husseini there. She embarks on her adventure of really understanding the rituals associated with Muharram, and we actually look forward to her adventure as well throughout the next episodes.
Absolutely. It's really refreshing to see young children participate in these activities, isn't it?
It brings you back to my old days, and I'm sure your old days as well.
Not many years ago.
Many years ago, when we grew up within the Husseini atmosphere, wearing the black, for example, and changing certain things at home. But we'll definitely delve into that a lot more in the coming episodes. Today, well, actually now we have what's called our fiqh section. So we're looking into the jurisprudential aspects of Muharram and Safar, so everything associated with Muharram. Because of course, from our perspective, there's a lot of cultural things that we do, but sometimes actually they fall into what's called mustahab and makruh. So what are the good things to do, what are the bad things to do? And joining us today is, and as ever for the rest of the series, is Sayyid Muhsin Shah. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Thank
you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you're Imam Hussein's very own.
Indeed, I have a couple of programs that I do with Imam Hussein TV. Alhamdulillah. I hope you've been tuning in and enjoying them, benefiting from the programs, inshallah.
Definitely.
And we look forward to your input in these coming days and months ahead.
I'll do my best.
Brilliant. Sayyid, so I guess just from an introductory perspective, we're looking at for the benefit of the viewers, we're looking at the sort of the jurisprudential issues, topics associated with Muharram, with Ashura specifically, maybe, as well as Arba'een and Safar, and there's a lot that me and Zara were talking about. But I think what we really want to do today, I guess, is look into the initial rituals that are deemed to be mustahab in preparation for Muharram, in preparation for the 10 days of Ashura. Yes. Because from a cultural perspective, we were saying that there are certain things that we will do, we won't do, for example. But from your perspective, just to kick off the session, in terms of the mustahab acts to prepare for Muharram, what are the things that you'd recommend?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before I begin, I'd send my condolences to the Imam of our time and also to the Muslim Ummah on this holy and special month where we commemorate and grieve the tragedy of Karbala. Muharram is a very, very special time, and we know from the riwayat how the first of Muharram would come and Imam Sajjad, he would straight away he would just stop being happy. He would start to grieve. Already it was like, in order we have this famous poetry that Muharram ki chand nikal aayi hai. That means the moon of Muharram has come. That as soon as that moon has been seen, it's like a black cloud has just come over the whole. We actually
have that in Iraqi backgrounds as well. So Ihlal al-Shahr, so it's the crescent of the moon, or the moon of Muharram has come upon us. And actually, you're right. It's an indication of now is the time for mourning.
And you feel it, don't you? I think your soul, before you get into the month arrives, your soul starts to recognise that.
Indeed,
it starts to wind down.
It's really funny because a couple of days ago, not a couple, let's say a couple of weeks, like 20 days, we were celebrating Ghadir, which is one of the biggest Eids in the Shia calendar. And then from one, highlight to, that plummets down.
Completion of the
It just
faith.
goes straight down, and I believe some say Muharram is the first of the calendar, Islamic calendar. I believe we are the only nation, or the only people that actually welcome the new year with tears,
with mourning,
and mourning and grief. We don't, we don't celebrate.
So before we go into, they have a question actually from a sister in London. So if I ask you the question, then perhaps we can continue with the conversation. So she says, "Dear Sheikh, can you please advise on the mustahab acts during the first 10 days of Muharram? Someone told me off for wearing a coloured scarf during the first 10 days of Muharram, as this is disrespectful. Is this true, and can you please advise?"
It is mustahab to wear the black clothing, and the reason that we wear the black clothing is to show that we are in a state of grieving. Also, to wear black clothing, I mean, black is the colour of absence, isn't it? So in a way you're showing there's an absence of emotion, there's an absence of happiness, there is an absence of maybe an individual from your family. When we have our own family members pass away, it's, you'll see people who wear black at the funeral, at the janazah, and they will continue to mourn for 40 days. So
sometimes more.
Indeed. So we are trying to use Muharram as that we have lost one of our own, and indeed we have lost one of our own, and someone who is in a personality that is greater than our own relatives and our own loved ones. So it's mustahab to wear the black. Also, the black indicates that you are grieving and you are mourning. Now, when we all rush to the majlis, if a non-Muslim is walking by, what do they see? They will see a crowd of people coming to the mosque. Everyone is wearing black. That person will be thinking, what's going on? Something is going on. Everyone's dressed the same. Something going on. And when they see that for 10 nights consecutively, they will definitely spark some sort of curiosity and some sort of interest into what is happening, and this is a fantastic way to introduce Imam Hussein
absolutely
to non-Muslims,
definitely,
simply from their own queries.
Without you even actually saying anything, you can even spread a message, because from what you're saying, it's real gold, because to translate that to, for example, modern society, and a lot of people have this issue with, for example, Muharram is coming, but do I change the way I am at work, for example, or at university? And actually it's a bit of a test of faith, I would say, because a lot of people will shy away from it, thinking, well, I don't really want to talk about Muharram because I'm scared of the actual discussion, where it's going to go towards, and so in a way, the way you can translate it from what you were saying is for non-Muslims, when they mourn, they would wear black. So why is it okay for a non-Muslim to wear black, but for us we have to shy away from wearing black, or even talking about this, because it's to do with religion, or I'm a bit shy to talk about it.
I wonder if generally we're moving away from I know in the Western culture they were saying about whether they should continue wearing black. It's a celebration of life, and that's a different conversation. But even I know when we've gone into workplaces, wearing black is quite a statement, because you obviously when you're in a professional environment you have to wear colours that are work, but then wearing just black is quite a statement. But I think what you're saying is absolutely right, that it's an opportunity for you to explain the commemoration, the whole actions of...
and I think non-Muslims generally, if you explain to them from a way where they can understand, the thing is, it all comes down to how you explain it and the language that you use. So if I'm going to use languages like Muharram, Ashura, Imam Hussein, well, that's not going to resonate with them, because they don't know what Muharram is, or Ashura, or Imam Hussein. But if I tell them, look, a very, very dear person associated with the religion has passed away, not passed away, he was butchered, for example, and you just touch upon the story, and immediately they'll be like, oh wow, okay, so this is quite powerful, so I can understand why you'd wear the black. So
I think it's a great opportunity. But the main thing I would like to send to indicate to the viewers is that when Muharram comes, please act in a way as if one of your own has passed away.
So important, isn't it?
I come from a Pakistani background, and when one of our relatives, close relatives, would pass away, straight away the TV's off. You're not putting the telly on. There wasn't much entertainment or enjoyment. There wasn't much laughing. And then straight away you've got people coming over non-stop. One thing was very common was they take all the furniture, put it in another room, and they'll put out a sawad and a piece of cloth on the floor, and people come and sit on the floor to pay their respects. And also there will be a stack of Qur'ans, and you can start reciting some Qur'an.
And I think in essence what we're saying is that in terms of mourning, is that make your body, soul, heart align, and actually feel that you're going into this period building up to Ashura, because You know, some people say, oh, well, Ashura came or, you know, Arba'in came, I didn't feel anything. But you have to make that preparation for you to actually take the full benefits of that period. Because if you're going to just have a normal life, you're going to the cinema, you're having your, you know, television, and suddenly you're not going to switch off and say, this is it, that's, you know, I'm going to go and cry in the evening for Imam Hussein. Make it really impact your soul, isn't it?
It's similar to the way that we welcome Ramadan.
Yeah.
You know, when Ramadan comes, you'll see people start to change their spirituality by doing extra activities.
Definitely.
They start reading Quran more, they want to start listening to lectures more. They're feeling it because of the hunger and thirst. But it helps them to become a bit more active into that spiritual lifestyle. Same with Muharram. If when Muharram comes, if we could start changing our habits a little bit just to help us, to get us into that spiritual lifestyle, which is through grieving and remembering the Imam and remembering Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, I'm sure we will have a much more positive impact on our spirituality.
So tell me about when it comes to wearing the black, for example, or even attending majalis. What does that come under when it comes to a jurisprudential context?
Jurisprudentially, it is mustahab and recommended, but not wajib, because obviously some people may not be able to afford black. And maybe some people may think, oh, I don't want to wear black, doesn't suit me, or for whatever reasons they don't wish to wear black. By the way, outside of mourning, it is actually makruh to wear all black.
Exactly.
It is makruh to wear black. It's very encouraged to wear white. And I believe the Umayyads were very known to wear black. It was a sign of their tribe, and the clothing, their uniform was to wear black. And Bani Hashim would wear white and green.
Yeah, they did.
So with the years and with the tragedies, obviously it's changed now. But it's makruh to wear fully black, meaning everything is black. Your distasha, your shawar, your socks, your shoes, all your garments having it black is makruh to wear. So, and those times, you know, you shouldn't wear black. But when it comes to grieving and Muharram, yes, definitely it switches. It's mustahab, and I think that with wearing it, those people who can't, it's understandable, and it's not made wajib for convenience sake. But I think we should, as a community, do our very best to wear black. If you can't wear it during the 10 days of Muharram, please Ashura, just that one day. You know, and for those of you who do the Mashaya and have seen Arba'in, they call it the Black River, where they had a helicopter, you know, and they followed one of the main pathways into Karbala, into the Haram, and this video goes on for 15 to 20 minutes on a helicopter, and it's a black sea. You can see nothing but black. And it just shows how the community has come, how the community has come and united under this you know, black cloth, you could say, to spread their message.
Would I be able to just go back to the question? So this girl for wearing a coloured scarf, and I know through the years when you attend majalis, and you know, you see it in the ladies section obviously, and I've noticed a lot of younger girls will perhaps wear sort of greys and, you know, sombre colours, and surely that's okay. And on the day of Ashura, like you said, wear the black. If it's not possible even for the remaining period till Arba'in, perhaps wear colours that are not so
I mean, we're not coming to a party. We're not coming to like celebrate, and certain colours, you know, would you know, go with that theme of joy, and that's not what the theme is of Muharram. It's grieving and it's mourning, and I think it's very important for people to understand the theme, the environment, the mood that we're having in the majlis.
It's funny because if you would have asked those same people, sometimes I find people that defy it, and they say, well, no, I don't want to wear black, it's all in the heart, for example, or it's all in the mind. And it's funny because if you would have asked them to attend a non-Muslim funeral, 10 times out of 10 they would definitely be somber, be wearing black, and they'll be very respectful and very silent, and respect the rituals associated with that funeral. So, but why is it when it comes to your own religion, your own faith, your own imam, you're going to stand back and say, well, I want to defy the status quo?
I think what's happening is maybe there is a challenge where it is so frequent that annually we're doing this, and number one, they probably got used to it, so that you know, like the novelty's kind of worn off, or that whole spirituality.
That's very important, actually.
So they've kind of, you know, and secondly, maybe there's a bit of an issue with their spirituality. Maybe they're going through a little spiritual, you could say, episode in their life, where they're becoming a little detached from religion, rather than going back into religion and strengthening their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Imam.
And I think it's like touching on that to say, because we only got about a minute or so left, is to use these nights to reconnect, because they are, like you were saying earlier, the Shahr Ramadan, it's an opportunity Allah has given us that, you know, come back to me. And Muharram is exactly that come back to your roots and understand who these people were that we're commemorating, because they're not just anybody. And but any final sort of message for the love?
My message is I wish you know, a very, very spiritual and beneficial Muharram to all the viewers, and also to remember the Imam of our time, because this is a very, very difficult and painful time for him. And for all those who can actually go and attend Karbala, please go do the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah. Please go visit Karbala during these nights, so that you're actually there where it happened. And inshallah, please remember us in your du'as, and have a very, very beneficial and very, very spiritual Muharram, inshallah.
Thank you very much for your words of wisdom, and obviously pray for us in these nights of Muharram, inshallah.
Thank you for having me, inshallah.
And have a blessed day as well. Thank you so much.
Syed, so just to echo the words, thank you very much for your time. And that wraps up today's morning barakah. I hope that your mornings are always filled with barakah, and essentially these next couple of episodes we're going to take a bit of a deep dive with the Sayyid into the rituals associated with Muharram and the jurisprudential context to that. Today we've discussed, you know, wearing the black, and hopefully in the next couple of episodes we'll look into the concepts of azadari. So we look forward to seeing you then. But from myself and Zara, we wish you a blessed morning, and hopefully you will be able to benefit from the Muharram sessions coming along, inshallah. And with that, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Daily I lament Hussein with everything patient, with your love impatient. Daily I lament, daily I lament Hussein.